Okay, here's another update on the Nova. Motor's in, but don't be too excited yet. It's got to come back out. Since you saw the motor last, I got this belt and pulley kit, but ran into problems. Supposed to be just simple, put a belt and pulley kit on. The back of the pulley rubbed this bracket right here. So I had to make a washer to step the pulley out just a little bit, which made it in line with my alternator pulley and not rub. But then I found out the previous owner had not installed the balancer all the way. Why he had it out, why there wasn't a bolt in it, I'm not sure. Now the bolt is a torque to yield bolt, so they are supposed to be replaced after taking it out. Maybe that's why there wasn't a bolt in it. But my balancer wasn't installed all the way. It wasn't pushed back all the way because my pulleys weren't in line. So I had to get a tool, remove it all the way. I changed the seal back there just because I had it off. I was inspecting the crank, make sure it wasn't pitted or anything. Installed the balancer all the way and bit the bullet and bought a pricey ARP bolt, one that I can reuse. And I marked it all to see if it spins on me when I start it. Which it shouldn't, it's all tight. But just in case there was a problem there, I marked it. So that's done now. So I got the belt on. I wasted a couple days. I got my fuel injectors in, and I was trying to make my stock fuel rails work with aftermarket fuel injectors, and it was just going to turn into a big butchery. So I ended up ordering some fuel rails. We're going to get them in and see if they work. I'll do a video on that later. And yeah, the motor is in for mock-up purposes. I wanted to move the motor back because I had clearance issues between my radiator and my fans. I did install my lower bracket that I made for my radiator. I made this bracket and the radiator sits on it and bolts to it. And I checked my clearance and it's good. Now is a good time to check my clearance for my spark plug coil setup, and they clear. Now the hole I had to cut in the firewall was right underneath the windshield washer motor. It was basically a big bubble, and I cut the bubble out so the motor could sit all the way back. Now when I go to remove the motor, it can't come straight up, so keep that in mind for later. But I mean, it clears. I put my hand back there, and the bubble I cut out. Here's another shot of it. You can kind of see better. Now the other side, that's the bolt for my lifting chains, and it was rubbing the firewall, but I'll sand that and repaint it. So that's the clearance I have on this side. I measured the motor, got it nice and centered. What really helped me really well is this wood 2x6 block. So the motor is sitting on the block, and the block is sitting on the cross member. Now, 2x6 block gave me a perfect clearance between my rack and pinion and my oil pump. And I have to keep it on the engine hoist the whole time, centering it. So the block worked out nice. Now we're going to take you under the car and show you motor mounts. So I had these. This is the Speedway weld-on motor mount kit, which has this side, and then it has this bracket piece. What I did is I welded this plate onto my cross member. See the weld right here? So this extension plate comes out and welds to my cross member. Now, I could have welded this bracket straight to that extension plate, but then I couldn't go straight up with the motor to get it off because of this ear. You have to go straight up and then forward, and that wouldn't work. I would have hit my firewall. So instead, I basically made a motor mount. So if I take this bolt out, and then I take the motor mount out, I basically made that motor mount, and it has 4 bolt holes in it, and it will bolt to the extension plate back here and the cross member. It'll drill and tap into the cross member. And I made extra on this 6-inch plate. I'll cut the extra off, and I'm also going to do a gusset plate from the extension plate to the
cross member, just a triangle gusset plate right here to hold the back of it. But yeah, that's what I welded these in when I had the motor out. And I put it all in for mock-up and fabrication and measured everything and made the motor mount. So those will bolt in. So this way, if I ever want to remove the motor, I just support the motor with chains and then unbolt the motor mount, and it can come forward then and then up. Now I'm going to show you the back of the trans. Okay, so here's the back of my trans, and you notice there's no mount. That wood block is to keep it from going towards the passenger side, because for some reason I kept wanting to go that way. But the wood blocks just help centers everything. Now the trans mount's right there, the jack's sitting on it, and I can't just run, bars from here to the floor, because there's no real sound structural stuff. The front subframe stops right here. Now I was doing some reading, and these cars like to twist under big power, so they do subframe connectors. They connect from the back of the leaf spring, which is right here. So there's kind of the rear subframe. They connect from this leaf spring mount with a metal bar to this front subframe. And I said, well, that'll be great. I'll put in subframe connectors and then so I'll basically have a metal bar right here. And I'll use that metal bar and tie over to the transmission mount. Well, then it got me thinking, I want to run a wider rear tire than this. Just a little bit wider. But this already rubs the inside of the fender, and there's not a lot of clearance between the tire and the leaf spring. So I want to move my leaf springs 2 inches inward, both of them. So I'm going to cut the mounts off, move the leaf springs in, and I have to change rear ends because that's not strong enough. So I'm going to do all that later. But that's next. I'm going to take that rear end out, take the leaf springs out, move the leaf spring mounts in 2 inches, and then do my subframe connector bar and put a different rear end. I'm going to go with a Ford 8.8. They're supposed to be strong. Come out of some of the Mustangs. And then I'll do my transmission mount. And by then I'll have my transmission rebuilt, and it won't be all greasy. I'll have my motor in the car, maybe supported at the bottom of the wheel with a jack, the oil pan. But I'll be able to bring the transmission in and out through the floor, and I'll be able to fabricate all that up later. I'm going to pause now and take you inside the car. So we're inside the car now, and you can see that's the hole I got to cover up, weld up. Maybe some other weird holes in the firewall like that one and that one over there. But that's the big square one I cut for the motor to come backwards. The previous owner cut this out, and it kind of works for my trans. I got to cut a little bit more because this is a cooler line and it's close. And then I got some sensors over here that are close, so I'll cut a little bit more. And then I'm going to make because I like serviceability, I'm going to make this whole firewall cover removable. So I have bolts in the floor. And I'll try to hide it with the carpet, but the whole thing will be removable. So I can just remove this and get to sensors or get to the bell housing bolts real easy. But that's the inside of the car, and that square hole is the one I got to patch. I got to patch it on the inside. Okay. Pause and take it back outside now. So the next step for me is I'm going to pull the motor and the trans all the way back out, and I'm basically working from the front of the car to the firewall. I'm going to patch that hole, patch these holes, clean up the firewall real well, and then I'll put the motor back in. The bottom of the oil pan will be supported. It'll be just the motor. So basically, from the firewall forward, all the fabrication will be done. Then I'm going to rebuild the trans, which is going to take me a while. There's a lot of pieces. Once the trans is clean and rebuilt, then I'm going to put it back up underneath the motor,
start fabricating the transmission tunnel, the bar, the subframe connectors. Maybe by then, I'll pick up a rear end, start fabricating backwards that way. But yeah, the next step is firewall, engine bay fabrication done. Put the motor back in on its own motor mounts, supported from the bottom. Support the back of the motor with a jack, and then start working with the firewall backwards with the trans and stuff. But yeah, let me know what you think. It's coming along slowly but surely. Thanks.